My most popular post on the blog is a post I did with the title, How to Avoid the Flick and Crash. And it talks about Scott Rao's concept, what he terms the flick and the crash, which is manifested in the rate of rise. So what happens is the rate of rise increases suddenly, the flick, and then immediately afterwards the rate of rise crashes. It drops significantly at a steeper curve than it was previously dropping. In the post, I talk about what causes it, I talk about the rate of rise, and then I talk about how possibly to avoid the flick and the crash. And because it's the most popular post I have, I thought I would do a video on it. And when I did the video, I took on a couple of different things I probably shouldn't have done. I also was trying to espresso roast, something I rarely ever do. So it's kind of something that needs my attention. I was also filming and recording for the video, and so the roast really didn't get a lot of my attention, and so looking back on it, I really didn't avoid the flick and the crash very easily, very well, very effectively. But I got to thinking last night, I didn't want to post the video because I didn't avoid the flick and crash, and it's all about avoiding the flick and crash. But then I thought, well, there's probably some useful information in there. So what I'll do is I'll title this video Exploring the Flick and Crash, and I'll go ahead and post my roast and show everybody what I did and what the outcome was. And I'll continue to post more videos as I explore both the espresso roast and the flick and crash more. Hopefully all this information will be useful to somebody. The exploration process is certainly going to be helpful to me, and if I can share that with some of you, that would be great. Started the recording early so that I can demonstrate some of the automation I have set up in Artisan software. At 3:90, right about now, I have an alarm set up to start recording immediately. This way I don't forget to start recording at the beginning of my roast. And when that happens and you click recording after you've already charged the beans, it just skews everything within Artisan. I have now charged the beans, and the other thing that I have automated within Artisan is as soon as the charge event is recorded, I drop my power to 50%, and then what's going to happen is 30 seconds later it's going to bump that power up to 85%. Now I do this just so that everything can kind of normalize within the drum, and also because for the preheat cycle of the hot top I had to run the element at 100%. So now I have a bit of headspace here if something happens within the roast and I've miscalculated it and I need more power. I have 10% of the roaster's power that I can tap into should I need it. Loaded into the background, you can see I just did a roast of this same bean, and this light colored blue line that bounces up and then goes down like a roller coaster is the rate of rise. The rate of rise measures the momentum of the roast. And according to Scott Rao, all of the best roasts that he's had, that he's tasted, that he also has roast data for, their rate of rise constantly declines and there is no flick and crash. This hump represents a flick. It's where the beans went exothermic. And this hump is also a flick, and then this drop is a crash. So what happened here is the beans during the roasting process reached a point where they went exothermic. They started producing heat, and their heat was added to the environment heat, and that impacted the roast here, where you can see the impact of it here. In order to avoid this with the hot top, because there's a bit of lag in the element, the electric heating element, when we make changes, we need to anticipate that. So what I'm going to do is when the environment temperature reaches 401 degrees, which is recorded as this event here, N0. When I reach that point, I will start backing off my heat 5 percentage points at a go, so that by the time I reach first crack and those beans go exothermic for the first time, I've anticipated that, and the heat that they add to the drum does not impact the overall environment temperature. I also have another bit of automation set up within Artisan that happens at 300 degrees Fahrenheit at the bean temp. I have it set up to automatically kick the fan on to 50%. And I do that to extract all of the moisture that we are putting into the drum right now through evaporation. If we look at the rate of rise in real time, we can see that it's not useful information because it's a moving average. So this heartbeat looking information is the data that Artisan is collecting for the rate of rise, but it needs the data over time to calculate the running average. Therefore, we look at the rate of rise after we've completed the roast. So we're going to shut that off. Now, the previous roast I did, I actually was recording a video at the same time, so I wasn't paying very good attention after we hit 401 degrees. So you can see very few changes up to first crack, and that led to this flick there when the beans went exothermic. This time I'm going to do a little bit better job. Also changed since the last time is this power setting here. For this current roast that I'm running now, I'm dropping it to 90%. Previously I was at 100%, and now I'm testing dropping this to 90%. See if that stretches out, number one, stretches out the roast a bit more. Number two, like I said earlier, gives me a bit of headroom. And I can see if we compare it to the last roast, we're definitely taking longer to get to our points. We haven't hit 401 yet. Last time we hit it at about 5:30, and now we're going to hit it maybe 60 seconds later. There's the last bit, well, the second to last bit of automation I have going is the recording of that event. And now we want to start dropping heat. I need to figure out what's going on with the buttons to cause that. That should have just been a -5 instead of shutting it off completely. And I noticed it did that with the previous roast. See, it worked that time. I'd like to get my power down to about 65 before I hit first crack in order to avoid this flick. So I'm going to continue to drop my power slowly like this so that I don't aggressively impact the rate of rise, because if I just drop it straight down to 65, you'll see a drop in my rate of rise, and I don't want that. Just heard a Quaker pop. Once I get one more pop, I'll call that first crack. So the fan just jumped to 85% because we reached a specific temperature, the bean temp, and I do that to prepare for first crack so that I have the fan running, extracting the smoke that's being created in first crack. I'm not sure why I'm not getting my first crack percentage up here. Oh, because I hit second crack instead of first crack. Well, that sucks. I have to see if I can go in and change that after the fact. So we're now at 60 seconds into first crack. We need to continue to adjust the power as we progress through first crack, because there will be a second exothermic event before second crack. So I need to continue to anticipate that by reducing the heat. But I also need to be careful, because on my setup, when my fan gets closer to 95, 100%, it can overpower the heating elements at 50%. So I'm extracting more heated air out of the environment than I am heating with the element. If I'm not careful, I'll bake the beans. We don't want this to fall flat, otherwise we'll bake them, which is a term, it's a cupping term, and it is a kind of a flat flavor, kind of baggy, peanutty flavor that you don't want. and we'll call it. Alright, now what we'll do is we'll go in and look at the data. We can now enable the rate of rise, see it in our profile, and take a look and see what effects we had on the roast with our changes. I can also show you how I recovered from pressing the wrong button when I clicked second crack start instead of first crack start. I've already opened the profile, and you can see this line is the rate of rise. And you can see we still have a flick here, a bit of a crash, and then our second flick here. And we weren't roasting long enough to see if there was a second crash or not. It doesn't look like there was going to be. We can see here, this is where I realized that I clicked second crack instead of first crack. And the way I fixed that is you go into roast properties, and you can see your events here and when they started. So previously this was 0000 and this was 0833. And this was because I clicked the wrong button when first crack started. I clicked second crack start, so it correctly recorded what I told it to record. So to fix that, we go back into roast properties, and we can say first crack started at 0833 and second crack never started. And it, for whatever reason, leaves this yellow shading in that it only does for second crack. I just haven't taken the time to figure out if I can get rid of that or not. It's neither here nor there. But going back and analyzing this, we can see that, again, I didn't affect enough changes. I didn't make enough changes in here to avoid this flick. Again, I was probably distracted with trying to record and get everything right for the video to show you how to avoid the flick and crash, that I didn't avoid the flick and crash. Now I have since gone in and made some changes that I'll show in another video that I hope will do the trick. So stay tuned for the next video, and hopefully we can avoid that flick and crash.